Psychoanalysis and Spirituality, thus Mahavidyas, the 10 mothers. In the last video, last episode, we came till this point, trying to develop a perspective on what Mahavidya is all about. And we were on the point that the Mahavidya as a spiritual approach of self-knowing, self-transformation, material well-being, spiritual well-being, and power. It deals with all the elementals in an indirect way. It does not make exclusive focus explicitly on any particular element, which many schools do. There are schools which are based only on chakras. There are schools like Hatha Yoga based only largely on the body. There are schools of, say, pranic healing, which are largely based upon the energy layer. Of course, it includes other parts, but the major focus is on the energy layer of the body. Thus Mahavidya, and there are some schools, for example, astrological schools, which deal with it in a very different way. Carl Jung tried to bring astrology into psychoanalysis. And there are some practitioners of Jung, even today, very senior practitioners, who also make use of astrological charts, which is not well known in psychoanalytic circuits. So thus Mahavidya in that sense is a very comprehensive package of practices which directly, indirectly addresses all the vayus, all the chakras, karma or elementals, the grahas and everything else. So it, in that sense, is a very comprehensive package in terms of engagement and results, but it is not focused on any one particular elemental exclusively or explicitly. So let us look at what it is about. This Mahavidya, what is it about? The sadhana of the 10 mothers. Sadhana meaning the spiritual process involving the 10 mothers. And the mothers, as we saw, are not easy mothers to deal with. The easy sattvic forms of the mother, which ordinarily most Hindus worship, or even the sattvic part of Tantra would worship, would be Lakshmi, Saraswati, Durga. They are very soft mothers. They seem to be very feminine, very soft, very motherly, very delicate. So they are very Saumya. Whereas these are the Ugra mothers. Thus Mahavidya, the mothers are, they are Kleinian mothers. They are not Winnicott's mothers. And so let us go slowly into this. What is it about? What is the spiritual process of the 10 mothers? And then we'll come to the psychoanalytic part. So every mother, when you go into the spiritual process involving any mother, you start with one mother. And we will go into it how to start with which mother. But every mother has a story of her origin as to how she got created. So there is a story of origin of every mother. Apart from the story of origin, which is psychoanalytically very interesting, apart from the story of the origin, there is also a story of her life as to what she did after coming into existence. So there is something called the story of the mother involving her origin and her actions. And most mothers involve uh, defeating some difficult being or tendency. So there is a story of the mother. For each of the mothers, there is a story. So we are dealing with 10 stories. And there is also a story of origin of all the 10. So the mythology is very rich. The Tantra books are also very rich. One story is that Shiva and Sati were living together, and Sati's father organized a social occasion and did not invite them. And Sati wanted to go there. Shiva said, "Don't go there, we are not invited." Sati would not listen to him, and Shiva wanted to avoid this conversation. He wanted to go away. So Sati created her forms in all the 10 directions. And these 10 directions, all these 10 forms in 10 directions, they would not allow Shiva to go anywhere. And these 10 forms which have locked Shiva are what the 10 Mahavidyas are. That Shiva is locked from all the 10 directions by manifestations of Shakti. Which is true that from all the directions inside and outside, we are engulfed and we are locked by our own desires, fears, and karma. And it's only after pleasing and dismantling this whole strange hold of Shakti, we can actually get into a state of no thought, no fear, bliss, and awareness. So this would be a wholesale story of origin of all of them, but there is also a story of each of them separately. So there's a different part of it also. We'll take up those stories. There can also be stories like the first one is the root, like Kali is the root and everything else is emerging out of Kali. So there is one story which tells you how all the 10 have come about. Second mythological approach is first comes Kali with her story and then everything comes out of Kali. And in that sense, Kali becomes the first among equals. And there's a third approach where each of them has a different story of origin. So we will go with the third approach where each of them has a different story of origin and see what stories are. So first there is a story of the mother. Then there is a depiction of the mother in the visuals. Like there is one mother, I think Bagalmukhi, who is holding the tongue of a demon. And this demon had a boon from somebody, I think Brahmaji, that whatever he says will come true. So in order that he does not say anything, this goddess holds his tongue so he cannot say anything. Now what does that symbolism mean? We'll go into it when we take up one Mahavidya in each episode. So there is a depiction, a particular depiction of the goddess in the visual that we normally see. Then there is information about the nature of the goddess. Is she Ugra? Is she Saumya? Is she benevolent? If you do something wrong in the worship, how deeply you will pay back? Because all the 10 Mahavidyas, they are intense. So if anything goes wrong, you pay very heavily. And that is the reason nobody is allowed to do this worship without a guru. This is like a stock market operation. If something goes wrong, you are completely wiped off. So the returns are high and the losses also are high. And therefore, 10 Mahavidya is only for those who are ready to take this high risk, high return package. And therefore, you do it only under the guidance of somebody who is an expert in this. This is not something to be read or seeing the videos you start off. The consequences of something going wrong are very severe. Because we are dealing with the most intense part of Tantra. We are not dealing with the Saumya or the central part of Tantra. We are dealing with the left-hand path or the very severe part of Tantra, very intense part of it. So every mother, there is a story of origin, a story of her life. There is a depiction in the visual in a particular way. There is information on the nature, the weapons she holds. And for worship of each mother, there is a specific mantra. So there are 10 different mantras for 10 different mothers. So for each mother, there is a mantra, there is a specific yantra, and there is a specific way of worship. Meaning, let us say mother X, she has to be worshipped by mantra A. And when you sing the mantra A, this particular mudra has to be done and the focus has to be on a particular chakra. So there is a full package. It is not a vanilla recitation of mantra. The mantra has to be done in an ecosystem to get the effect of the mantra. So there are weapons of each mother, and it's psychoanalytically interesting to know why those weapons. Many of the mothers are severely castrating mothers. They appear so at the first sight. For each mother, there is a mantra, there is a yantra, and there is a way of worship. Like what is to be offered in the puja. And for each type of aspirant, you start off with a different mother, or in sometimes you omit a particular mother. The guru tells you don't do this mother's worship. And then each mother gives different results on the path. Finally, of course, everyone will lead to enlightenment, but on the path, apart from enlightenment, right, the results are very different. So if you want to stop something from happening, people usually go for Bagalmukhi. So for each different purpose of life, not only spiritual, even ordinary everyday purpose, there is a different mother to be worshipped in a different way. And we'll go into it. And this covers practically the whole of our material life. And that's one of the beauty of the whole package, how it covers the entire practical life of every day, even as it propels you towards enlightenment. For each of the mothers worship on the path, the dangers are different. And the lifestyle modifications also may be different. So one by one, as you take up the worship of each mother, this whole package will differ. Now, what is the generic way of approaching any mother? The first important element is that when you do idol worship, these are the generics of idol worship. You create the idol in a particular way based upon your purpose. Now, these idols already are created. Then you give a personality in terms of the story of origin and the story of life. This is already done in case of this Mahavidya. The great gurus have already created this. Then how you relate to it, and this is very important. Like when you see some of the mothers, it is difficult to see. So first you see them, you feel frightened of them. Then when you see them more, you start getting used to them and you tolerate them. Then you get used to them. Then it becomes normal to have a picture of them in front of you. After some time, you may start liking them. You may start loving them. You may start seeing goodness in them. You may start seeing beauty in them. And this then, because you have seen the goodness and beauty and love in the worst possible forms, it can easily be generalized to everything. So you start from the most difficult to love to develop the capability to love. So the Saumya worship, you start with what is easily doable and go to the difficult. In Ugra worship, you start with the most difficult. And then the easy becomes more easy. So you start from not from light to darkness, but from darkness to light. You transform forcibly darkness by entering into it despite all its dangers. So in idol worship, as you move towards this, in this also, you go through the same thing. The first two things are already done by the gurus. Then the guru asks you to enter into a relationship with it of different types. And then slowly it becomes companionship, closeness, fusion, dissolution, oneness. Now, this is almost like inviting a micro pre-psychosis state. But this is also a greatly transformative state if done well. And then you have the Yantra, Mantra, Tantra, Upasana, lifestyle changes, dream analysis, interpretation of life events based upon what you are worshipping, development of mystical powers, rare experiences, and the protection, guidance, and discussion with the guru are inevitable, without which this cannot be done. So these are the generics of the path. Now coming to the specifics. Which Devi to start with? Now this depends upon the chakras. When you start purifying the chakras, there are three approaches. One, some people start top down. Strengthen the positive before opening the negative. Some people start bottom up, start with the worst possible, the top ones are easy to handle. Some people start with the center, first open the heart chakra, and then start from top or the bottom. So there are three approaches. The same here. Some Devis, some Mahavidyas, they deal more with purification of the lower chakras, some more with the center, some more with the top, and the Guru decides which is the way for you. Whether you will move from Kali to Tripura Sundari, or you will start with Tripura Sundari, then go to Kamala, then go to Tara, then go to somebody, or maybe omit a few of them. So this is the first specific which they need to start with and to go in what sequence, and if necessary, omit some Devi in between. So this is the first specific. Okay. Then the process. The process would be, first is to clean ourselves and clean the asana, purify where we are sitting through a process prescribed by the Guru. Then you pray to the Bhairav of that Devi in a specific way, whatever is prescribed. If necessary, using a mantra. Then you do the Bhairav Puja, Guru Puja, Ganesh Puja, and then you do the Ishta Sthapana by certain mantras. After that, you start the mantra japa of the particular Devi, whatever you are worshipping. Then do the Tarpana and then do Visarjan. We saw in idol therapy that Visarjan is very important, because then it leads to mourning. Because you accept that loss, you accept the separation. And therefore in Ganesh festival also, the Visarjan is very important. That you bring in, you relate, you worship, you go through the processes of Samipya, Tadrupta, Tanmayata, Lay, and then there is Visarjan. So this would be the process. Now, how to do it is what somebody will need a guru. Ideally, when we are going into psychoanalysis, if we had this data, we could have done psychoanalysis of the process, but we don't have it. So this part, important part, will be left out. That what mantra you use for which Devi, how do you do Bhairav Puja or Ganesh Puja or Ishta Sthapana for a particular Devi? Do you use only one mantra or a variety of it for your protection, and so on and so forth? But these are the specifics of doing that. Now, what are the results? The good part of the results would be self-purification, more consciousness, releasing the brakes from inside. In the language of ISTDP, we will say self-sabotage. Development of faculties, enhancement of knowledge, skills, mystical power, standard of living. So you have material progress and spiritual progress. And power to do greater general good. If something goes wrong, then what happens? It can result in psychological sickness, biological sickness, misfortune, and the books tell us your soul can suffer post-death. And that's a very difficult suffering if you do something wrong. And enhancement of negative karma. So these are the results of Mahavidya, and the Mahavidyas are very intense. So both the results are very intense. The good will be intensely good and the bad will be intensely good. And therefore, we have to be very careful on this part. Now, what do we want to do? From a psychoanalytic standpoint, the canvas is the canvas of the 10 mothers, the good mother and the bad mother, the good mother and the strong mother. And for each mother, we have the mother's origin, the story of depiction, our response to the mother. How do we respond when we see it for the first time? What effects are activated inside of us? What psychoanalytic phenomena does it involve? Just as we see it, because that will bring out the difficulties which are inside. If I see a mother with a scissor and a sickle, and I get afraid, obviously my castration anxieties are not done. So, however I convince myself, my exposure to this most difficult situation brings out the most defended against the deepest repressed of my difficulties. So it's a very good psychological X-ray in that sense. Exposed to the most difficult, the most intense, and the most repressed, and the most denied comes up. Then how do I psychoanalytically understand the story of the mother and its impact on me? How do we understand psychoanalytically the worship of the mother? We can do it in a generic way. Specifics we don't have, only a guru would have. And then, can we do the adoration of the mother after seeing that difficult mother? And this is a very important part in most spiritual practices. In fact, in Arbindo's Savitri, there is a full chapter, the adoration of the Divine Mother. And that follows after very difficult exploration of difficult parts of self and the world. Then the mystical powers, the spiritual gains, how do we look at it psychoanalytically? And from a psychoanalytic standpoint, strictly speaking, what are the outcome gains and the process gains? So we will get into the analysis of the mother, the practices of the mother, and its impact on us. And what can psychoanalysis gain if this is working for so many people? So this is
very interesting topic, sir. In fact, it is something, it's not just a Mahavidya for the general public. I would say it is something to work with very profound and very powerful wisdom to be, checking with, even if we talk in a psychoanalytic way, how people are fixated in their lives, how they might get fixated on one of these Mahavidyas, also the forms. So it's going to be a very interesting journey with you on this topic.
Because just look at it that if the ancients have prescribed after hundreds of years of experience that these 10 Mahavidyas take care of all our psychological and material problems, may not be in an absolute sense, but definitely to a substantial extent. And this
also, they're symbolically very archetypically driven, like to have an imagination of an all omnipotent, powerful, all bad mother.
It is the worship
It
of
is
Mother.
giving, it is the worship for her and loving her.
So
It
if you look at-
resolves our difficult parts.
yeah. So it is, if you look at it from that point of view, it is in 10 Mahavidyas, you worship two good mothers. You worship about 3 ambivalent mothers, 2 to 3 ambivalent mothers, and you worship about 5 bad mothers. So you are dealing with all the 3, the good mother, the ambivalent mother, and the bad mother. And all in their omnipotent intense forms.
Intense forms.
So, yeah, one more point. There is also this point of omnipotence that we have to look at. Not from psychoanalytic standpoint of projection on them and the fear of them. That of course is a important part, but a separate part. But I was coming from the final result standpoint. People get an impression that at last we have found an omnipotent tool. That by doing this thus Mahavidya, all the problems will be annihilated in no time. If I can do the Mahavidya correct. But that is not exactly the case. The fundamental equation that you come with a load of karma and a load of journey of life that you wish to experience. And outside, there is a collective karma and a journey of existence. And there is an element of grace of higher beings and of God. This fundamental framework cannot change. You can create 10 Mahavidyas or 100 Mahavidyas, but this fundamental cannot change. It is inside this fundamental framework that the Vidyas work. And the quest would be for the optimum Vidya, not the omnipotent Vidya.
Omnipotent.
The thing can disturb the structure. You cannot find anything inside the structure that can obliterate the structure. Neither any being nor any Vidya. But within whatever is possible, this is one of the most powerful. So there will be many people who will do it very correctly, but will not get the full fruit. Because the karmic load would be very high. The journey of life would not be of that time. The collective karma or the journey of the existence or the grace part of it would not be there. So you will find then the gurus telling the sishyas that you will have to keep doing, maybe you get it in the next birth. You will get some benefit, but not substantial. Or you may get substantial benefit, but not reach enlightenment. Most common will be you get substantial benefits, but not reach enlightenment. Few would reach enlightenment, and very few would be such that no benefits are forthcoming, no matter what they do. It's like a bell curve. So this is where this is not an omnipotent tool that at last we have found, but this is a very powerful tool that we have found. And possibly this tool can do, which many other tools cannot do.
As you say, as a tool, sometimes in sessions with clients, we do offer them certain inclination towards certain deity, and we explore how the projection of omnipotence or some the death instinct is directing them towards life and the process. I feel just like Roshash, we can always offer them this on somewhere in the journey when they're ready. To have a deeper understanding of unconscious being a therapist, that how do they, if they come from the same origin of the religion Hindu, and then we can always offer them something like, it can be somewhere a tool of a very projective understanding of unconscious of a person with regard to the thanatos and eros in a Freudian way.
Yeah, and like going by that Kernberg's classification of patients, you have patients who cannot be taken into psychoanalysis, patients who can be taken in but you can only do holding, patients with whom you can do interpretation, and patients with whom you can do challenge. So this possibly is a tool for those who can take challenge.
Right, sir.
It doesn't frighten them too much. But yes, as a psychological testing tool, probably you can use it across. But as a deeper engagement, it is probably for those who can take challenge. These are too intense and too terrifying.
In
Most of
fact, while having a look at it, the entire DSM was just reflecting every time I was looking at each picture. Somewhere there was this nihilistic delusion coming up. Sometimes the castration anxiety was coming up. Sometimes the Oedipus was there. So the picture itself are so psychoanalytically driven that somewhere I think this is going to help a lot of psychoanalysts out there to have some understanding with regard to this greater knowledge of 10 Mahavidya vis-a-vis psychoanalysis too.
Yeah, because for centuries, people have found that these 10 are addressing practically all difficulties of a large section of population, which means that in some way or the other, they are addressing the most fundamental psychoanalytic difficulties that are found across a large group of people in society. So
True,
in
sir.
that sense, it's a very comprehensive tool, not a public health tool, but definitely a
Right, sir.
with this perspective, let us stop for the day. And next time onwards, we'll take up one Mahavidya upper episode from a psychoanalytic standpoint.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much for this amazing discussion.
Namaste.
Namaste.